according to what I've read, before you were an actress, you've done a lot of beauty queen, modeling type stuff. Was there a moment, though, when you realized that you wanted to be or that you were an actress? Like, was there a turning point, or did it just evolve?
It sort of evolved. Acting wasn't really, I wasn't one of those little kids that just wanted to be an actor and had it in my blood. I wanted to be a psychiatrist and then a journalist, actually. And it was when I met my manager, my producing partner now, that I decided acting was what I wanted to do. He called me and I came to New York and for an audition. I didn't get the job, but he had me do a couple monologues and he said, "Oh my gosh, I think you have talent. I think you should do this for a living." And it was only at that time that I think, because someone like him said to me, "I think you have just some sort of raw, natural talent here. I think you should study and hone this thing. You could maybe go far."
People often talk about a big break. They look back at it, and in reading everything I could again to prepare for this, people cite different movies as different breaks. I mean, some people point to Jungle Fever, some people point to Boomerang, some people point to Bulworth. What did you see as the sort of the important stepping stones on the way to today?
I would say my first big break was none of those. It was a television show I did called Living Dolls. That was my first acting job, the first time I got paid to do acting. That moved me out to LA, and that was a break for me because I think that awakened me to the thought, really, that this is what I would do for a living, that it was possible. Before that, it was a nice dream, it was a thought, but when I started to get a paycheck for doing what I loved to do, I thought, oh wow, this is really real. But then I would then say Jungle Fever after that was my first film, and to come from the world of modeling, to do a movie like that that sort of shed that part of me, and I got to just be an actor. I would say that was a break because I think the industry looked at me seriously from my very first movie, and I shed the beauty queen image right away.
Well, that kind of anticipated what I was going to ask next, which is that, I mean, it kind of is a clunky, awkward question to ask, but I do want to say, when you're trying to be taken seriously as an actress starting out, and you are very beautiful, obviously, does it make it harder for people? Do you have an extra obstacle? Is it helpful or hurtful, or harder because of that?
Well, it all depends. I mean, my first job, I was playing a model on a sitcom, so there it helped me. It didn't help me get Jungle Fever at all. So sometimes, whatever your physicality is, it can help you depending on the role. I think in my career, I've spent a good deal of it always trying to prove that I'm more than the shell I'm walking around in. I think it still plagues me on some level. I feel like I'm still having to prove that underneath all this, hair and makeup, there's an actor that's been working hard.
Right. I understand that even now, having won your Oscar, very established at this point, you still work with a acting coach, which is so admirable, I think, and cool, because it shows how seriously you take it. Can you talk about that? Because I think, especially, and I'll bring it up if it's all right with you again when we do this, because we have an audience of actors, I think it just shows how committed you are to the craft.
I think many actors do. I think many of them just don't talk about it. Because I think somehow when people so-called make it, they feel, oh, it's taboo to say that I still study, or that I still seek help, or that I still work my stuff out with someone. But I remember when I worked with Warren Beatty on Bulworth, and I was talking to him about it, and he said, never stop. The greats always work with someone, because the last thing you want to do is show up on the set and say the words out loud for the first time on the set or with the director and the other actors. You've got to do your own homework, so you need someone to sort of work it out with, to run the lines with, to come up with ideas with, to see what works and see what doesn't work. So the minute you stop doing that, I think you stop taking your craft seriously, because there's always something to learn. Once you learn it all, you should probably quit and find something else to do.
Obviously, your Oscar victory was historic, and the acceptance speech will be replayed forever.
I know.
So I wanted to ask you, though, now with the benefit of 9 years to look back on it with, how did it change things, the good and the bad, and what does it mean to you now with, again, the benefit of hindsight?
Well, it is, I would say, thus far the crowning achievement of my career. Absolutely. It's the highest honor in our industry, and nothing replaces that. And many good has come, lots of good. People, take me seriously, and I have had some opportunities come my way as a result. The negative is the Oscar curse, and I think that's very true.
You do?
Yeah,
How does it work? Because I'm always curious to hear about that.
Well, I think it's a pressure that sort of walks in the minute you walk off the stage with that guy. There's pressure put on you to duplicate that and to continue to do Oscar-worthy roles, as if it were that easy to, have won in your career. And I think when you do anything less than that, somehow you have, failed Oscar. How dare you do something like that when you have an Academy Award?
Right.
So it's a lot of pressure,
yeah.
and it's impossible to live up to. At least it has been for everyone I can see.
If it makes you feel any better, this past summer I interviewed Louise Reiner, who was the first person to win back-to-back Oscars, 1936, 1937. And then by 1940, she was gone.
She was done.
Yeah, she just gave up. So you've handled it better. So
I'm still standing.
But, yeah, you're still standing. The next thing I was gonna mention, I guess, sort of leading into the movie that we're talking about today, especially, is when. I was gonna make a comment about Adrian Brody. I was gonna see what you thought about him, but I'll let that one go. But when and how did you first learn about this lady in the story for Frankie and Alice? I guess I was gonna say this character, but it's three characters.
Right, it's three characters.
Right.
I learned about this when I was introducing Dorothy Dandridge, an actor in the movie Oba Babatunde, who played Harold Nicholas, told me about it. And he said, I know this guy who has the rights to this amazing story about this woman with multiple personality disorder. I got intrigued by the idea of it. He laid it all out for me. He did a great pitch. I, along with my producing partner, got a hold of Michael Levy, the man who had the rights, and we went from there. And that was like 12 years ago when we first contacted him. Which
begs the question: why did it take so long with you and a great story and great director? What was the holdup?
Well, it's a drama, and it's one of those dramas that's about the slice of one woman's life, and she's complex and a complicated character. And 12 years ago, and especially as the years went on, these kinds of movies are becoming, I hate to say it, but somewhat dinosaurs. It's about animation, kids' movie, action movies, big studio films right now, and so it got harder and harder as the years went on to get someone to tell this story. But we were relentless, and we believed it was important. And as an actor, I thought, this is an amazing character to play. I couldn't think of a way to challenge myself more than that. So we just fought. We kept fighting. We were hoping it would one day happen.
Is the woman who inspired the film still around? Were you able to have any access to her for this?
Yes, I spoke to her. Our writers, especially our first writer, spent time speaking to her. And the doctor was also pivotal in coming up with the story, because where she didn't have certain information, because she didn't remember some things, her alters don't remember everything. Sure. We had the doctor to turn to for information.
That's great. What was your reaction last night after seeing it? You seemed very moved, and I believe it was the first time you'd seen it on a big screen with an audience. I may be wrong.
Yes, no, it was.
So what was your reaction?
Nerve-wracking. Whenever I had friends of mine that were there, and so always nervous when your friends see it, because your friends will tell you the truth, good, bad, or otherwise. Yeah. So I was nervous to hear what they would say, and it's like you're presenting your baby. And I've carried this one a very long time, so it's very close to me. Right. And I was anxious to hear what people had to say.
Related to this, I guess talk about the challenges here of playing three characters in the same film, but also often in the same scene. Where I know I mentioned this to you briefly last night, and you gave me an interesting answer, but The doctor needed a chart to keep track of all these things. Here you are within the same scene, having to remember who you're morphing into and changing back. So maybe that's kind of a rare challenge. We've had other multiple personality characters in movies before, but I don't know if we've seen them all come out quite so quickly in the same scene like that. No cuts. Right?
No, one of my friends at the premiere the screening last night said it reminded him of American Werewolf in London without any special effects.
That's good. That's good.
And I said, is that a compliment? I think that might be a compliment.
Right.